Good evening. Welcome to the Book of Kent, where we're so sad and stuff. We're now having to sit shivas for the great Charlie KRUEGER, one of the greatest linemen other than me, he admitted that, who passed away last Friday. If you really want to see his obituaries, you might want to go to the channel that appears under his name on the YouTube search. It's a secondary channel, but anyway, this is such a difficult time for me. It really is. I'm going to con you just like Charlie conned all them people in his life. I'm so heartbroken. I can't stand it. You know, it's our obligation as Jews, which Charlie started out hating Jews. He actually worked for the Coney Zellerbach family, which owned Champion Papers and stuff like that. Did public relations, which is like the easiest thing you can do, because all he had to do was like take what was his name, Mr. Benson, the president of Champion Papers. Mountain lion hunting and fishing like once a year, and he got a huge check for that. My brother Charlie was quite good at charming people, and like I always say, why do you need glasses when you have a bottle? It's so sad to have to sit in shivas and mourn the loss of a loved one. I think we'll have to take that up on review. Because I just got back from town about an hour and a half ago. I deliberately timed my trip to town today for the evening pre-dinner crowd of people who would be, especially after such a weekend such as this and stuff like that. They would be, coming in to restock for a whole place. I saw kind of thick, muscly gals coming in there on their own, with, leaving their wife behind at home, grabbing like 3 to 4. I saw one gal grabbing two 30 packs of Corona in the bottle, cases of Corona in the bottle and stuff like that, so she could take them home to her wife and some of the other new inhabitants of this county. I'm glad I've got on a kind of a cool, this kind of breaks Jewish law, but this is a polyester shirt. Like I said, I've been to town and back today. It was so cool because I selected that time of day, I should say, for the sole reason because, around 5 o'clock to 6:30, which when I was there, I didn't get home till about 7. Out of those, roughly about 1,600 people that ran into me in the primary shopping area of Caldwell, Texas. Not one of them recognized me. Some of them they recognized me, but not one of them stopped to say, "Oh, I heard about your brother. I'm so sorry to hear." Not a single one. Charles Andrew KRUEGER. Nobody. Especially considering that actually now on this particular day, half those people are not even from here. They're from Colorado, California, New York City, Massachusetts, Michigan, all these other liberal shitholes and stuff like that, Wisconsin, Minnesota, the northern tier states down here trying to glom jobs and like in the fracking oil business, et cetera, like that, or just people have come here to retire because, despite the real land values and stuff like that, the cost of living here is quite inexpensive. Anyway, I may go 30 minutes on this because I just really, I'm going to calm down for a second and remind you that one of the first things that I said in the now 1 hour and 15 minutes of Charlie Krueger obituaries that I put out there, one of the first things he did to me, which he owes me money for, which I'm going after his estate. I mean, the web says he's worth $10 million. I know it's at least that, because is that when I was 14, I had a spinal fracture, which I described hilariously on my secondary channel. You know, he wasn't very nice to me to begin with right off the. Actually, we didn't hardly go anywhere. No, we did. But that was mostly my sister-in-law, his wife. He didn't do shit until. But in the summer of 1968, I had a spinal fracture on the first day of full contact at Carmel High School, Belmont, California. I will never forget looking up, the pain was about to start to hit me. I looked up and I saw there was like 7 coaches behind me and stuff like that. They had put me in, they decided to do on a 5-man line on the first day of contact, and they put me in as nose guard. And as nose guard for the Carmel Scots, my very first move, my very first contact, we'd been, pussyfooting around during the early days of August and stuff like that, because the season begins in mid-August out there. Hell, they don't even let the kids out of high school until usually June 9th or June 18th, in that range. They don't have much of a summer. But the first thing I did on my very first contact play, full pads, was I tackled the center, Roger McMahon's older brother, who was actually bigger than Roger, and the quarterback, who I think his last name was Lopez or something like that. No, Lopez may have been the guy in my generation, and he had some really bad hemorrhoids problems. But right off the bat, on my first day in contact, and my very first snap of the ball, I sprung forward with my enormous. I was already, it's a long story. I sprung forward and tackled both the center and the quarterback. As soon as the center snapped the ball, I trapped him, the ball, and the quarterback all into a pile on the floor, on the ground. And 7 coaches standing behind him, all started hooting and howling and giving me a standing ovation. What they didn't know is that I had fractured my 5th lumbar, the pars interarticularis, because anybody who knows anything about sports knows that muscle strength very often exceeds bone and connective tissue strength. That's a whole other story into itself. And so I missed most. I only played like one league ball game in my freshman year and stuff like that. And my own brother, Charles Andrew Krueger, who was my guardian, and we were living in one of the finest houses and the most exclusive still to this day. It's actually, if you want to buy a house in Notre Dame Heights, Belmont, California, you better get ready to. Nobody wants to sell up there, and I'm sure that their minimum asking price for any house in that area is somewhere between $8 to $28 million. Depends on where they're at. Actually, Charlie's house set on the highest spot, looking out on and he got it for $60,000 cash, because the builders, the developers of that housing, actually the first gated community in Belmont, California, wanted a celebrity in the neighborhood, and they actually sold that house to, and then later Bob McLean outed me the fact that underneath that house was, it was a bunch of rotting, because he had done for his father some of the dozer work when he was just barely a teenager and stuff like that. Under that house was a bunch of rotting tree stumps and other crap that they used to create that mound up behind the house of a famous family, former mayor of Belmont, California, which apparently that family and included a very famous actress that you would recognize the name if I mentioned it. I won't at this time because I've never been much of a name dropper, really. It's never asked anybody for their autograph or have my picture taken with them, but they've done it to me, like Bruce Willis. I've been talking about that in YouTube a lot the last week, and so, but... And then I went to be examined and treated by one Lloyd Taylor, who was not only the 49er kind of family doctor, well, he was the 49er doctor, but he was not the orthopedic surgeon. And both Nolan and Charles Andrew KRUEGER and his wife Beverly KRUEGER all conspired to hide from me that I may have had a small, tiny birth defect, which is generally called spondylolisthesis, that may have contributed to the fact that my extremely rapid growth and muscular strength contributed to the fact that my fifth lumbar vertebra, during that me tackling the center and the quarterback with the ball like stuck between his hands and up McMahon's butt, fractured the pars interarticularis of my fifth lumbar, causing alternating paralysis and paresis for months and stuff like that. This is a long story. I've already done over an hour and 15 minutes on my other channel. I'm trying to just nail it down to you here because I know that most of the subscribers to this channel hate me but admire me, just like my brother Charles did. He had a love-hate thing for me. Some of them are my true admirers. And actually over 100 and something people who no longer subscribe to this channel, they came and went because they thought they were going to get the hippie, Buddhistic, ganja. Because I started out trying to teach, science to hippies, which never works out. So here I am, little Jew boy, Kent KRUEGER, just so sad and sorrowful and sitting shivas is the term for my deceased brother Charles, who was cremated by Friday night in California. Requested no memorial service because nobody would come, especially nice. Charles burned every friend he ever had. I didn't have to live in my brother Charles' shadow. I exceeded his shadow. He was constantly, he was just such a, from start to finish, he was such a two-faced kind of person. He would build me up and smack me down. He did actually to everybody. And he conned a lot of people. But you know what? I've been checking on as frequently as possible. I've been checking on the web and stuff like that. Yeah, he's gotten from Friday at ESPN. Thankfully, the Super Bowl popped up and killed a lot of the public. But his death has been, and actually they keep using the same, like Santa Clara official, death thing written by one person, and they got his age wrong. My brother Charles Andrew KRUEGER is actually 85 years old, not 84. Don't tell me shit. His birthday was last month. You assholes that keep trying to tell me shit about my own family or about me just really annoy me. So, yeah, I'm going to definitely do 30 minutes on here. I've been having pretty good upload speeds and shit like that, especially Saturday night before Super Bowl and then Sunday night after the Super Bowl. It hasn't taken too long. Actually, Saturday night was my best time for a 4 gig upload. And a lot of you people think that I'm, some pin-headed, puffy-cheeked weirdo and shit like that. You don't realize it's all about the camera, The closer you get to the camera, the more bulbous my nose becomes. Everybody knows this stuff. The everything gets bigger when you get closer to the can, stuff like that. And actually, I got a big head. And a lot of people have been noticing lately since I pulled up Charlie's picture that was allowed out there by the Niners, because it's, that we look very similar. And anyway, but I have my own unique looks anyway. Charlie was such a total dickhead. Now that we're sitting shivas and talking about the life of Charles Andrew KRUEGER, Charlie, spelt Charley until he was at least 22 years old. Charlie, I.E., is feminine. Ley is masculine. He was under pressure because he was having to sign autographs and stuff like that to all them cave fuckers around Kezar Stadium and shit like that. And he had to kind of speed up and feminize his signature. And actually, I want to point out that I may get into talking about his drug use and abuse. And it was really all abuse. And I'm not sure where to go with this right now. There's so much. This will not be my last commentary on somebody that actually had for, 85 years had people just follow and worship everything that he did, even although most of them fell off. Maybe I should start right there. In the summer of 1968, my mom called Charlie and Beverly and the Lamars and other people like that. My mom called them kidnappers, because everybody wanted us KRUEGER children. In school, we were called the best behaved children and stuff like that. We were very obedient. We did our work and stuff like that. We're super competent and so on. And this goes back now more than a century. People used to come looking for my dad because they knew that my dad would put in 16 hours work for just enough food for himself and a little bit of food to share with his family and stuff like that. I'm talking about about 10, 12, 8, 10, 12, 13. So I left off where, I'd already been out to California with Charlie and Beverly, and this is going to be a lengthy and convoluted story by the time I get through with it. And I feel good enough tonight to do at least, maybe an hour and a half total. In 1968 and 1969, that's when Charlie lost his ass. Charlie and his wife invited me and my sister, Rhonda, she's been dead a long time now, out to be their guests for the summer. And actually, my sister-in-law, Beverly, was she was a weird bitch. Yes, she really was. She was one of them typical childless school teachers who just were obsessed with children, had to have children around to be that motherly thing and stuff like that. And she was just weird. I'll get into more details later because I can see I have less than 10 minutes, because I know that YouTube will choke me if I do more than 30 minutes. So we came out for the summer, and it wasn't too bad, although right off the bat, Charlie, who had just bought that new house, he got this deal on a house in Notre Dame Heights in Belmont, California, when the rest of those houses were selling for $120,000 to $220,000. He got a house that was on the kind of the highest point at, you can look it up at a cul-de-sac called 14 Phyllis Court, Belmont, California. Look it up on Google Street View. You'll see the lovely 3-level house there and stuff, which is nobody will sell now. It's worth at least $10 million now. And Charlie, when they laid the sod in there and stuff like that, he bought up in his attempt to be macho and stuff like that. He bought a push mower. I know that the front lawn was only about front lawn was probably no more than, it was a lot bigger than the average Englishman's front yard or front garden. It was probably only about 400, 500 square feet, and then bushes and stuff like that. But when you're doing a push mower, with a push mower in a place like California where you water your lawn, you've got to be out there with a push mower every 3 to 5 days. And he expected me to do that and all this other stuff. It gets worse much later after the spinal fracture. And actually he kind of did what he wanted to do, which is go out and drink and do drugs and chase women. I actually never caught my brother Charlie with another woman because he really had trouble, just like Rolf. He had trouble. My brother Charlie, I think, had trouble getting some strange more than every 4, 6, or 8 months. I know that from living with both of them. Jeez, can you imagine if you're like some high-paid, well-off, and you can't get strange, whatever, because you're so obnoxious and then it come around the first or second week of August, and actually that was actually in late May, early June. Charlie called this what was his name, Rosenbaum or something. He was a sports writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, and he told them this fictitious story about how much I eat. He gave him Charlie always wanted to, I've told him, if you want to know more about this, go look up Charlie KRUEGER under YouTube. Search Charlie KRUEGER under YouTube, and you'll find, an hour and 15 minutes of me on my other channel telling you all these truths, and you'll find that I never vary a single iota. Anyway, he called, what was his name, like Stanley Rosenbaum, and he told him a fictitious story, and he actually exaggerated the amount I ate for breakfast. Actually, I didn't eat breakfast much since I developed glaucoma from beating up a 10-year-old guy when I was 8 on the concrete floor in Channel 3 in Bryan, Texas, and stuff like that. It was all lies. But that gave me my first global publicity, and the famous people page, it was only one page. There was like Walter Stilt Chamberlain, famous race car driver, all kind of other people, and then a big article talking about me on that one page and stuff like that. And it was mostly that summer, it was, mostly Beverly, who was just craved being around kids. She almost couldn't stand. And this had gone back to about 1960, I think, was the first time that she came. And my mother called Beverly and Charlie and the Lewises kidnappers because they were always coming and stealing her children and stealing her comfort and joy of being with her own children, her youngest children, who she adored. And then it came about the second week of August when I was about to begin school at Carmont High School and begin, football practice and stuff like that. And they asked my sister, do you want to stay and go to school here? When my sister-in-law Beverly had been dressing her up like some old maid and treating her like shit, and she was really just didn't talk much. She wasn't. You see, I'm actually a very shy person, but I use this mechanism of gregariousness to cover that up and stuff like that. But I've been trained in etiquette and everything else since I was like 9 years old by her and other high-class people and shit like that. And my sister just said she couldn't stand anymore with Charlie. Actually, before that year, finishing with Charlie, where I went through both lumbar spinal fracture and then a spring and almost lethal peritoneal infection, peritonitis, and appendectomy, stuff where I almost died and stuff like that. It's a long story. He didn't even have me insured on his fireman's fund insurance and stuff like that. What a loser. Just money out of his pocket every time he turned around because he was so freaking lazy. But my sister right off the bat just said no. She wanted to go back, and she did leave about, I think, about August 8th, 9th, or 10th of 68. And then I spent the next year with my brother Charlie, who he and his wife were strictly using me as a buffer to keep their marriage from, going in the crapper and him being kicked out of the house, which happened as soon as I left. So to all you people in Caldwell, Texas, that'll be one of the key search word terms on here, who think that Charlie Krueger's this great guy, you're absolutely 100% wrong, because you never lived with him, and the people actually knew him, and the people in Caldwell and Burleson County who got, after his divorce, got stuck with one of his felony hot checks for hey, can you cash a check for $500? Because around here in the past, almost every farmer and rancher carried at least $1,000 to $5,000 to $10,000, dollars and $100 and $50 bills in their big giant wallets. And he'd go, hey, cash a $500 check for me on an account that was closed. And they would approach me and go, you know where Charlie's at? You know where he lives? And I go, yeah, 44 Regency Court, Clayton, California. You can look it up and they would go like, well, I'm still holding on to that $500 check that Charlie wrote me. And Charlie actually think that the local people would actually pay $500 for his autograph, which actually I think to this day his autograph has absolutely no value, even on Pawn Stars. But I think I'm getting it through to you people that I'm sitting shivas not so much for the glory of Charles Andrew Krueger, and who actually admitted at one point in time in like the summer of 73, after my dad had died and before I went back to A&M, there was this Sports Illustrated writer that followed me and Charlie around for weeks to get the story that eventually became Last of the Old Leather in Sports Illustrated. You can look that story up. And this is this weird thing that my brother Charles has always had with me. I didn't tell you about the time I told him, I'll get to it, that I told him to go outside, and I towed it up with him in like 1962 when I was 8. And I just beat a 10-year-old kid almost to death on a concrete floor in Channel 3, Bryan, Texas. Yeah, I did mention that the first. And my brother Charles was at least honest enough, and I know that my brother Charles, he continually told me and stuff like that, but he was such an asshole. I don't care what you think about me, Charles. It only matters what I think about you and what other people think about you. And that's what this Sitting Shivas is all about. It's about you and your inability to treat people well. You didn't do that. You did, however, we're creeping up on 29 minutes. You did tell that Sports Illustrated writer, I can see him on the Charlie Krueger deal on YouTube. He even mentioned L'Auberge, French restaurant in Redwood City, which looked crappy from the outside, and the food inside is not that good. And actually, Charlie's getting a lot of blowback, but Charlie told this guy, and it appears in print, in 1973 or whatever, just when I quit, and immediately Charlie resigned right at that point in time. Charles Andrew Krueger told the Sports Illustrated that by age 18, even before that I was a better player than he ever was. That's in print, Charles. You can't take that back from me, and you can't take back my stats. My stats are better than yours. I was taller, faster, stronger, and smarter than you, Charles Andrew Krueger. And we are so sitting shivas on you. And I'm going to be back in a little while after I have a little bit of vino.